My name is Alexander Ward, 40 years old, founder of a logistics company. To most people, I look like a man who has everything: success, control, and a beautiful wife. But control is an illusion. And the day it shatters, you realize how fragile everything you built really was. I came from nothing. My father worked until his back broke, and my mother taught me that emotions are a weakness. So I grew up believing two things: I'd never be poor again, and I'd never let anyone have the power to hurt me. Both promises died the day I met Elena. She was elegant, calm, the kind of woman who made the world quieter just by being in it. I met her when she was working as an interior designer for a hotel chain. I was pitching them a contract. She had this way of listening that made you feel seen. We married 3 years later, on the Amalfi Coast. That day, under a golden sunset, I thought I'd finally beaten life at its own game. I had a business taking off, and a woman who, I believed, loved me beyond reason. I was wrong. After the wedding, I built the company into something solid: trucks, warehouses, clients across Europe. Elena said she wanted to quit her job and start her own studio. I supported her completely. Found her a space. Bought the furniture. Hired a small team. She named it Studio Elon. It became her passion, her world. And I was proud. For a while, everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. The changes were small at first. Late nights. New clothes. A different perfume. Her phone always face down. She started smiling less, at me, anyway. I noticed. But I didn't ask. Because when you love someone that much, you'd rather lie to yourself than hear the truth. So I lied. I told myself she was tired, or busy, or just stressed. But deep down, I already knew. The truth arrived quietly, on a Tuesday night. I came home late, after another 12-hour day. The apartment was silent. Her phone buzzed on the table. One message lit the screen. "Last night was unforgettable. I can still taste you." I don't remember breathing for a full minute. Then I unlocked her phone and saw everything. Photos. Messages. Hotel receipts. 3 months of betrayal. His name was Mark, an architect. Married. A client of hers. They met in hotels. In my car. Even in her studio, the one I built for her. And in that moment, something inside me froze solid. Not anger. Not pain. Just an empty, sharp calm. When she came home later, smiling, asking how my day had been, I told her, "Perfect." Because I already knew what I'd do. I wasn't going to yell, or cry, or beg. That's what she expected. Instead, I was going to make her regret everything, not with violence, but with precision. The next few weeks were an act. I was kind. Attentive. I brought her flowers, made her breakfast, listened when she spoke. All while planning her downfall. I hired a private investigator under the cover of corporate security. Within 2 weeks, I had everything: photos, records, timestamps. She was sloppy. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Revenge, I've learned, is like business. It's all about timing. I started with her studio. On paper, Studio Elon was registered as a subsidiary of my company. I held the rights. So I began moving assets, quietly, legally. By the time I was done, everything she thought was hers belonged to me. Every piece of furniture, every contract, every account. She was just an employee. And she didn't even know it. Around that time, she started acting different, warmer, almost guilty. Maybe he left her. Maybe she realized what she'd thrown away. Either way, she began to reach for me again. I let her believe we were fixing things. I smiled, kissed her, played along. Because I wanted her to feel safe again. Only then could I take it all away. 3 months later, I called her into my office. Told her there were papers she needed to sign for the studio's expansion. She came in smiling, confident, wearing the perfume that used to make me weak. I handed her a folder and said, "It's about freedom." She laughed, until she started reading. Her smile vanished. What she held was a termination letter. Official. Final. The studio she thought she owned had been transferred entirely to my holding company. Her signature on older routine forms had already sealed the deal. "Alex, what is this?" she whispered. "It's the truth catching up," I said. Then I showed her the photos, the messages, everything. She broke. Tears. Apologies. Begging. She said it was a mistake. That she still loved me. But love doesn't survive betrayal. It rots quietly until there's nothing left but a memory of what it used to be. I told her I'd file for divorce quietly if she cooperated. If not, I'd send the evidence to Mark's wife, and to every client her studio ever worked with. She realized then I'd already won. She left the office that day in silence. I sat there alone, staring at the door she'd walked through. I thought I'd feel proud, victorious. Instead, I felt nothing. But that nothing, that silence, was peace. That was just the beginning. Because revenge never ends with the first strike. It just changes shape. People think revenge feels like triumph. It doesn't. It's quiet. Like standing in an empty room after an explosion, everything still, nothing left. That's how it felt after I destroyed her. Her company connections, her reputation, even her career, all gone. Just like that. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. Just empty. For a while, I tried to fill the silence with work. More deals, more meetings, more late nights. Anything to keep from thinking about her. But then the messages started. "Can we talk? Please, Alex. I made a mistake." I ignored them. Then came the long ones, pages of guilt, regret, apologies. She said she was lost. Lost. That word made me laugh. You don't accidentally betray someone. Still, every message cut a little deeper than I wanted to admit. One night, she showed up at my door. Rain-soaked, trembling, eyes red. "Please," she said. "Just 5 minutes." I should have closed the door. Instead, I let her in. She stood there, small and broken. Said she couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, that Mark had left her. That she'd lost everything. And for a moment, one brief, pathetic moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then she said, "I still love you." And something inside me snapped. "No," I said. "You love what I gave you. Not me." She started crying harder. I didn't move. I just watched, silent, detached, like I was looking at a stranger. When she finally left, I poured a drink and stared at the city lights. All I could think was, I won. And I hated it. Weeks later, the divorce went through. Fast, clean, in my favor. She got almost nothing. When I signed the final page, it didn't feel like closure. It felt like ashes. I sold the penthouse. Bought something smaller. No trace of her left. But somehow, she still lingered. In the smell of rain. In the silence before sleep. Months passed. Business thrived. I smiled again, on the surface. Then one night, Victor dragged me to a charity gala. I didn't want to go. But I went. And there she was. Elena. Standing alone, pale, distant, holding a glass she didn't drink. When our eyes met, I saw it, regret. Not fake. Not strategic. Real. I nodded once. She nodded back. No words. Just understanding. I turned and walked away. Outside, it was raining again. And for the first time, I realized revenge hadn't freed me. It had chained me to her memory even tighter. But that night, I made a choice. To let go. To rebuild. To stop being the man defined by her betrayal. Because true revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's rebuilding your own so completely. They no longer exist in it. After the gala, I stopped checking her social media. Stopped rereading old messages. Stopped pretending that what we had could still mean something. It was like waking up after a long, feverish dream, disoriented, hollow, but finally awake. I threw myself into rebuilding my life, but this time, not out of anger. I started running every morning again. Read books I'd bought years ago and never opened. Traveled for the first time without checking emails every hour. One trip changed me, Norway in winter. I stood on a cliff above a frozen fjord, silence stretching for miles, and realized something simple. Peace doesn't find you. You build it. And maybe that's what I'd been missing all along. Back home, I changed my company culture too. Less control, more trust. Less obsession with winning, more focus on doing things right. Funny how pain makes you human again. My team noticed. Clients noticed. I wasn't the cold strategist anymore. I was just Alex. Still sharp. Still ambitious. But calmer. Cleaner. I learned to say no. To breathe. To let things pass. Months later, I saw Elena one last time. Pure coincidence. I was having dinner with partners at a quiet restaurant downtown. She walked in with a friend, thinner, softer, older somehow. For a moment, our eyes met. No hate. No anger. Just two people who once shared a life and burned it to the ground. She smiled, faintly. I nodded back. And that was it. No closure. No speeches. Just silence, the kind that means it's over. I walked home that night and laughed for the first time in a long time. Not the bitter kind, real laughter. Because I finally understood the truth. I hadn't defeated her. I'd outgrown her. And that's a much rarer victory. Now, years later, when people ask about my past, I don't tell them the full story. Not because I'm ashamed, but because it doesn't define me anymore. I tell them this. I once lost everything I thought mattered. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. They usually look confused. But I mean it. Pain rebuilt me. Betrayal sharpened me. And revenge, as cold as it was, taught me what power truly means. Control over yourself. Sometimes, when it rains at night, I stand by the window and watch the reflections on the street. The city looks softer now, less cruel. And I remember that man who stood there years ago, broken, angry, lost. I don't hate him. I just know he had to die for me to become who I am now. Because real strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking, and still choosing to rebuild. One mistake. Endless regret. That was true for her. For me. One mistake. Endless rebirth.